Derrick! I didn't know you were here!
Yeah, I heard everything, Taryn.
The warehouse was quiet at 11:30 p.m. when I heard my wife's voice echoing through the empty corridors like a knife through my chest. Taryn's laugh, that throaty giggle she used to save for me, drifted from the office upstairs where she thought nobody could hear her late-night phone calls. "You're so much better than him, Colt. God, I can't believe I wasted 10 years. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I froze behind a stack of shipping pallets, my clipboard clattering to the concrete floor. You'd think after a decade of marriage, I'd be the one getting those midnight giggles. Instead, I was standing in my own workplace like some pathetic spy, listening to my wife trash our entire relationship to her high school sweetheart, Colt Rayner. Of course it was Colt Rayner. I'd been Derrick Mallon, warehouse supervisor at Midwest Distribution for 8 years. Solid job, decent pay, respected by my crew. But apparently, that wasn't enough for Taryn anymore. Not when her precious Colt had rolled back into town with his tech startup money and his Tesla and his downtown bachelor pad that probably cost more than I made in 3 years. The office door creaked open upstairs. I ducked deeper into the shadows, watching Taryn's silhouette against the fluorescent lights. Even from 50 feet away, I could see she was dressed up. The black dress she claimed was just for work meetings. The heels, she said, helped her feel professional. At 11:30 at night, in an empty warehouse. "I have to go, baby," she whispered into her phone. "Derrick thinks I'm doing inventory. Can you believe he's that stupid?" My hands clenched into fists. Stupid. After 10 years of supporting her career, paying for her business courses, listening to her complain about every boss and coworker, I was stupid. She clicked down the metal stairs, her heels echoing like gunshots. I stayed hidden until her car pulled out of the parking lot, then emerged from my hiding spot like some wounded animal crawling out of its cave. The next morning, Taryn was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight either. Big project timeline." Right. Big project named Colt. I sat at our scratched kitchen table, staring at the note, surrounded by the evidence of our declining marriage. Dishes in the sink that she used to wash without being asked. Mail piling up that she used to sort. The wedding photo on the counter, turned face down for the past month. Our house was a modest 2-bedroom in Millbrook Heights, the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew everyone else's business. Peeling paint on the shutters that I kept promising to fix. A lawn that needed mowing. Mrs. Patterson next door, always watching from her window, ready to spread gossip faster than wildfire. I pulled out my phone and opened our shared location app. We'd set it up years ago for safety, so we'd know if the other person made it to work okay or if someone was running late. Now it felt like a weapon in my hands. Taryn's little blue dot wasn't at her office downtown. It was at 1247 Harbor View Drive. Colt's address, which I'd memorized from the return labels on the Christmas cards his family used to send us, back when we were all friends. I called in sick to work and drove across town to Harbor View Drive. Colt's building was one of those converted warehouse lofts that developers marketed to young professionals with more money than sense. All exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows, trying to look industrial and sophisticated at the same time. Taryn's Honda was parked right next to Colt's blue Tesla in the visitors section. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, engine running, staring at those two cars side by side. My wife's sensible sedan next to her lover's flashy electric toy. The perfect metaphor for our marriage, our practical, reliable me getting upstaged by shiny, expensive him. That's when I stopped being the good husband and started being something else entirely. I pulled a piece of paper from my glove compartment and wrote, "Hope you enjoyed the ride. Yours truly, Derrick." I tucked it under Taryn's windshield wiper, then walked over to Colt's Tesla. The key to my truck made a beautiful scraping sound down the side of his car. Long, deep grooves in that perfect blue paint job. Then I took out my pocket knife and gave his front tire a quick jab. The hiss of escaping air was the most satisfying sound I'd heard in months. I was walking back to my truck when Mrs. Patterson's twin sister, Helen, appeared from behind another car with her phone out. "Well, well," she said, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "Derrick Mallon, what are you doing here?" Helen Morrison lived 2 streets over from us, but she might as well have been CNN for how fast news traveled through her network. "Just visiting a friend," I said, trying to sound casual. "Uh-huh." She was already typing on her phone. "And does Taryn know you're visiting friends who live in buildings like this?" I got in my truck and drove away, but I knew the damage was done. By the time I got home, Helen would have told half the neighborhood, and someone would have told Taryn. Sure enough, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your hubby's up to something weird. Saw him at Harbor View Drive keying cars. Thought you should know. A friend. I stared at the message, then started laughing. Not the good kind of laughter, the kind that bubbles up when you realize your life has officially turned into a soap opera. My phone rang. Taryn. What the hell is wrong with you? She screamed before I could even say hello. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Don't you dare. What were you doing at Colt's building, and what did you do to his car? I have no idea what you're talking about, I said, settling back in my recliner. But it's interesting that you know exactly which building I was at and exactly whose car got damaged. Almost like you were there or something. Silence. Derrick. Save it, Taryn. We both know what's going on here. The only question is what we're going to do about it. She hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, waiting for her to call back with an explanation or an apology or even a better lie. But the phone stayed quiet, and I realized that this was it. The moment when our marriage officially ended and something much more interesting began. Because if Taryn wanted to play games with Colt Rayner, she was about to learn that her stupid husband knew how to play games too, and I played to win. Taryn didn't come home that night, or the next night. On the third day, she finally showed up while I was eating breakfast, looking like she'd been through a blender. We need to talk, she said, standing in the kitchen doorway like she was afraid to come any closer. Oh, do we? I took another bite of cereal. Because I thought you were too busy with your big project timeline to talk to your stupid husband. She flinched. You heard that. I hear a lot of things. Amazing what you pick up when people think you're too dumb to notice. She sat down across from me, and I got a good look at her. Dark circles under her eyes, wrinkled clothes, the same black dress she'd been wearing at the warehouse 3 nights ago. I never meant for you to find out like this, she said. How did you mean for me to find out? Christmas card? Skywriting? Or were you just going to keep screwing around until I figured it out on my own? Don't be crude. Crude? I laughed. Honey, we haven't even gotten to crude yet. She folded her hands on the table, trying to look composed. I want a divorce. Of course you do. Can't have the warehouse supervisor cramping your style when you're trying to land the tech entrepreneur. It's not about money. Right. It's about love. True love with the guy who dumped you in high school for Jennifer Walsh because her dad owned a car dealership. Taryn's face went red. That was 20 years ago. And yet here we are. Funny how some people never change. She stood up. I'm getting a lawyer. Good luck with that. Hope Colt's paying, because you're about to find out how expensive divorce can be. After she left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, thinking. Then I called my bank and moved my entire paycheck to a new account that only I could access. I canceled our joint credit cards. I called our insurance company and took Taryn off our auto policy. If she wanted a war, I'd give her a war. But it would be fought on my terms. The first battle came sooner than I expected. Taryn worked as a sales coordinator for Premier Marketing Solutions, one of those companies that threw fancy parties to make their employees feel important. Their annual client appreciation event was being held at the Riverside Hotel, and apparently I was still invited. I hadn't planned to go, but then I realized it was the perfect opportunity to see Taryn and Colt together in public, to watch them pretend they were just old friends while everyone else whispered about the warehouse supervisor's cheating wife. I put on my best suit, the one I'd worn to our wedding, and drove to the hotel. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Taryn was holding court near the bar, laughing at something one of her coworkers was saying. She looked beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. Red dress, perfect makeup, hair styled like she was going to a movie premiere. And there was Colt, standing just close enough to make it obvious they were together, far enough away to maintain plausible deniability. He looked exactly like what he was, a guy who'd never worked a day of manual labor in his life, with his perfect hair and his expensive watch, and his smile that said he'd never met a problem he couldn't buy his way out of. I walked over to the bar and ordered a beer. Derrick! Taryn's voice was bright and fake. I didn't know you were coming. Wouldn't miss it, I said. Always enjoy watching my wife network. Colt stepped forward, extending his hand. Derrick, good to see you again. It's been, 5 years? Something like that. I looked at his hand but didn't shake it. How's the tech business? Can't complain. We just closed a major funding round. Congratulations. Must be nice to have investors throwing money at you. His smile faltered slightly. Well, we've worked hard to build something valuable. I'm sure you have. I took a sip of my beer. Taryn tells me you two have been catching up a lot lately. The temperature around us dropped about 10 degrees. Taryn's coworkers suddenly found other conversations to join. We're old friends, Colt said carefully. Right, old friends. the kind who catch up at midnight in empty warehouses. Taryn grabbed my arm. Derrick, maybe we should... Should what? Should pretend this isn't happening? Should smile and nod while you parade your boyfriend around my wife's work party? Keep your voice down, she hissed. Why? Afraid people might find out the truth? Colt stepped between us. Look, man, I think there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said. I understand perfectly. You're sleeping with my wife, and she's too much of a coward to admit it. The entire party went quiet. 50 people turned to stare at us like we were the evening's entertainment. Taryn's face went white. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? In front of all your professional friends? She slapped me, hard. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. I touched my cheek and smiled. Thanks, honey. That makes everything much clearer. I set my beer on the bar and walked out, leaving them standing there in front of everyone they worked with, trying to explain why the warehouse supervisor's wife had just slapped her husband for calling out her affair. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, letting the adrenaline fade. My cheeks still stung, but I felt better than I had in weeks, because now it was all out in the open. No more pretending, no more lies, no more stupid husband who didn't know what was going on. My phone buzzed. A text from my old friend Jenna. Heard about the party. You okay? I typed back, never better. Want to grab a drink? On my way. Jenna Martinez had been my friend since college, one of the few people who'd stayed in my corner through everything. She was a paralegal at a downtown law firm, smart as hell, and had never liked Taryn. We met at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar where the beer was cheap and nobody cared if you had relationship drama. So, she said, sliding into the booth across from me, want to tell me what really happened? I told her everything, the warehouse, the phone calls, the cars, the party. She listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking her head. Jesus, Derrick, I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm done being sorry. What are you going to do? I took a long drink of my beer. I'm going to destroy them. What does that mean? It means Taryn and Colt think they're dealing with some pathetic cuckold who's going to roll over and take it. They're about to find out how wrong they are. Jenna leaned forward. Be careful. Don't do anything that's going to land you in jail. I'm not stupid, Jen, but I'm not going to be the good guy anymore either. She studied my face. You know what? Good. Taryn's had this coming for years. She's treated you like garbage, and now she's cheating on you with that smug asshole. Maybe it's time someone taught them both a lesson. That's what I was hoping you'd say. What do you need? I smiled. How much do you know about divorce law? Enough to help you bury her. We spent the next 2 hours planning. By the time I drove home, I had a strategy, a timeline, and a new sense of purpose. Taryn's car was in the driveway when I got there, but the house was dark. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Staying at my sister's for a few days. We'll talk when you're ready to be civilized. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. Then I went upstairs and changed the locks on all the doors. If Taryn wanted to be civilized, she should have thought about that before she decided to cheat on me with Colt Rayner. But civility was off the table now. We were playing by new rules, my rules. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. No more wondering where Taryn was or what she was doing. No more pretending our marriage might somehow work out. Now I had a mission, complete and total destruction of the people who had humiliated me. I started with reconnaissance. Taryn had always been careless with her passwords. She used the same one for everything. Sunshine3, her childhood dog's name and her birthday. I'd helped her set up her cloud storage account years ago, back when we were still pretending to be a team. I logged in from my laptop and hit the jackpot immediately. Photos, hundreds of them. Taryn and Colt at restaurants I couldn't afford. Taryn and Colt at his apartment. Taryn and Colt in positions that made my stomach turn and my anger burn white hot. But the photos were nothing compared to the text messages that had automatically backed up to her cloud. God, I can't wait to be done with this charade, she'd written to Colt just 2 weeks ago. Derrick is so pathetic. He has no idea what's coming. Poor guy, Colt had replied. Maybe we should put him out of his misery faster. No, I want to make sure I get everything in the divorce. Let him stay stupid a little longer. There were dozens of messages like that, mocking my appearance, my job, my performance in bed, laughing about how easy it was to fool me, planning their future together while treating me like some kind of obstacle to be removed. The worst part was a group chat Taryn had with her work friends. 5 women, including her boss's wife, Maya Rayner, Colt's wife. Wait, Maya Rayner was Colt's wife and in Taryn's group chat? I scrolled through the messages with growing disbelief. Maya was participating in conversations about Taryn's affair with Maya's own husband, but she seemed to think they were talking about someone else. Taryn and her friends were being deliberately vague, using code words and inside jokes. Maya had no idea her husband was cheating on her with one of her friends. I screenshot everything, every photo, every text, every cruel joke at my expense. Then I organized it all into folders on my computer: evidence, humiliation, and nuclear option. My phone rang. It was Dave, my supervisor at the warehouse. "Derrick, where the hell are you? You've got a crew waiting for instructions on the Morrison shipment." "Sorry, Dave, family emergency. I'll be in this afternoon." "Everything okay?" "It will be." I spent the morning creating fake email accounts and researching Maya Rayner. She worked as a marketing director for a nonprofit downtown. Married to Colt for 8 years, no kids. Her social media was full of happy couple photos and inspirational quotes about trust and loyalty. She deserved to know the truth. I composed an anonymous email with a simple subject line: "About your husband. Mrs. Rayner, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your husband Colt is having an affair with Taryn Mallon. I've attached proof. You deserve better than this." I attached a carefully selected set of photos and text messages, then hit send. Then I drove to Colt's gym. The Fitness Elite was one of those upscale places where membership cost more than most people's car payments. I'd looked up Colt's schedule on his social media. He posted about his workouts obsessively, like anyone cared about his bench press numbers. His Tesla was in the parking lot, still sporting the scratches I'd given it. Someone had tried to buff them out, but you could still see the marks if you knew where to look. I parked next to it and waited. 20 minutes later, Colt emerged from the gym, towel around his neck, looking pleased with himself. He stopped short when he saw me leaning against his car. "What are you doing here?" he asked, glancing around like he was looking for security. "Thought we should have a conversation, man to man." "I don't think that's a good idea." "Really?" "Because I think it's a great idea. See, I've been doing some thinking about our situation." He started walking toward his car, but I didn't move out of his way. "There's no situation, Derrick. You and Taryn are having marriage problems. That's between you two." "Right. And you're just an innocent bystander who happens to be sleeping with my wife?" His face flushed. "Look, I never meant for things to go this far. But they did, and now we're here. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" "I'm going to get in my car and drive away. And you're going to let me," I smiled. "Actually, I don't think that's what's going to happen." I pulled out a small bag of sugar I'd brought from home and poured it into his gas tank while he watched in horror. "What the hell?" "Relax. It's just sugar. Probably won't do any permanent damage, but you might want to get it towed instead of trying to drive it." "You're insane." "No, I'm just getting started." I pulled out a tube of lipstick, Taryn's favorite shade, Crimson Passion, and wrote "cheater" across his windshield in big, bold letters. "This is vandalism. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'll wait right here while you explain to them why someone might want to vandalize your car. Should be an interesting conversation." He pulled out his phone, but before he could dial, I walked over to the gym's fire alarm and pulled it. The piercing sound split the air, and within seconds, people were streaming out of the building. Colt was surrounded by dozens of witnesses, standing next to his vandalized car with "cheater" written across the windshield. I walked away as the crowd gathered around him, pointing and whispering. By tomorrow, everyone at his gym would know that Colt Rayner was a cheater. The story would spread through his social circle like wildfire. My phone buzzed as I drove home. An unknown number. "This is Maya Rayner. We need to talk." I pulled over and called her back. "Mrs. Rayner?" "You can call me Maya, and thank you for sending me those photos." Her voice was calm, controlled. Not what I'd expected from a woman who just discovered her husband's affair. "I'm sorry you had to find out that way." "No, you're not, and neither am I. I've suspected something was going on for months. You just gave me proof." "What are you going to do?" "The same thing you are, I imagine. I'm going to destroy them both." I felt a smile spread across my face. "I like you already, Maya." "Good, because I have some ideas, and I think you're going to like them too." We talked for an hour. Maya was smart, ruthless, and pissed off in all the right ways. She'd been married to Colt long enough to know exactly where to hit him where it hurt most, and she had resources, money, connections, and a vindictive streak that made my own look amateur. By the time we hung up, we had a plan. Taryn's company was having their quarterly client meeting next week, a big presentation where all the major accounts would be represented, including several of Colt's business partners. Maya would be there as a representative of her nonprofit, which did business with Premier Marketing. We were going to give them a presentation they'd never forget. "One more thing," Maya said before we hung up. "I want you to know that I don't blame you for what happened. Colt and Taryn are the ones who chose to betray their marriages. You and I are just cleaning up their mess. I appreciate that. But Derrick, when we do this, we're going to do it right. No half measures, no mercy. They humiliated us, and we're going to return the favor with interest." "Understood." "Good. Let's burn their world down." After I hung up, I sat in my truck for a long time, thinking about what I'd just committed to. A week ago, I'd been a faithful husband who thought his biggest problem was a leaky roof. Now, I was planning to publicly destroy 2 people's lives with a woman I'd never met. The old Derrick would have been horrified. The old Derrick would have tried to work things out, maybe suggested marriage counseling. But the old Derrick was gone. He'd passed away in that warehouse when he heard his wife laughing about how much better her lover was than him. The new Derrick was something else entirely. Something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. And he was just getting started. The quarterly client meeting was held in the conference room on the top floor of Premier Marketing's building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, giving the whole space an air of corporate importance that Taryn had always loved. I wasn't supposed to be there, but Maya had arranged for me to attend as her assistant, representing the Riverside Community Foundation. Nobody questioned it. Maya was well known in the nonprofit world, and her organization was a legitimate client. Taryn nearly choked on her coffee when she saw me walk in with Maya. "What is he doing here?" she whispered to her boss, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Mr. Mallon is representing the Riverside Foundation," Maya said smoothly. "I hope that won't be a problem." Colt was sitting at the far end of the conference table, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. His business partner, Jake Morrison, was presenting their latest app development project to the room. Neither of them had noticed me yet. The meeting started normally enough. PowerPoint presentations, quarterly reports, the usual corporate theater. I sat quietly next to Maya, watching Taryn try to focus on her notes while shooting nervous glances in my direction. Then Maya stood up. "Before we conclude today's meeting," she said, "I have a special presentation about trust and transparency in business relationships." She walked to the front of the room and connected her laptop to the projector. Taryn's boss, Sandra, looked confused. "Maya, this wasn't on the agenda. I think you'll find it relevant to everyone here." The first slide appeared on the screen. Trust, the foundation of all relationships. Colt finally looked up from his phone and saw me. His face went white. "You see," Maya continued, "trust is essential in business. When we work with partners, we expect honesty, loyalty, and integrity. We expect them to honor their commitments." The second slide, what happens when trust is broken? Unfortunately, not everyone values trust the same way. Some people make commitments they have no intention of keeping. They lie, they cheat, they betray the people who depend on them. Taryn was starting to look panicked. "Maya, what is this about?" "I'm getting to that, Taryn." The third slide was a photo of Colt and Taryn kissing outside a restaurant. The room went silent. "This is my husband, Colt Rayner, with Taryn Mallon. This photo was taken 3 weeks ago." Sandra stood up. "Maya, this is highly inappropriate." "Is it?" Maya clicked to the next slide, a screenshot of text messages between Taryn and Colt, discussing their affair in explicit detail. "Because I think what's inappropriate is conducting an affair with a married business partner while lying to your spouse and your colleagues." The room erupted. People were talking over each other. Chairs were scraping. Phones were coming out to record the chaos. Colt was on his feet, red-faced and stammering. "Maya, you don't understand?" "I understand perfectly." She clicked to the next slide. More photos, more texts, more evidence. "I understand that you've been cheating on me for months. I understand that you've been using company resources to fund your affair. And I understand that everyone in this room now knows exactly what kind of people they're dealing with." Taryn was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Stop this, please." "Why should I stop? You didn't stop when you were destroying my marriage. You didn't stop when you were laughing about how stupid and pathetic our spouses were." Maya clicked to the final slide, a screenshot of the group chat where Taryn and her friends had mocked me and discussed the affair. This is what Taryn really thinks of her colleagues, her marriage, and her integrity. I thought you all deserved to know. Sandra was frantically trying to regain control of the room. "This meeting is over. Everyone, please." "Actually," I said, standing up for the first time, "I have something to add." All eyes turned to me. Taryn looked like she was going to be sick. "My name is Derrick Mallon. I'm Taryn's husband, or I was, until I found out she was cheating on me with Colt." I walked to the front of the room and stood next to Maya. "I want everyone here to know that my wife didn't just betray our marriage. She betrayed her professional relationships too. She's been using company time and resources to conduct this affair. She's been lying to her colleagues, her clients, and her boss. Derrick, don't, Taryn pleaded. Don't what? Don't tell the truth? The way you didn't tell the truth for months while you were screwing around behind my back? I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. Taryn's voice from one of her late-night phone calls, talking about how she couldn't wait to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for. The room was completely silent now, except for the sound of Taryn's voice coming from my phone, saying things that made several people gasp. When the recording ended, I put my phone away and looked around the room. I just wanted you all to know who you're really working with. Someone who lies as easily as breathing, who has no respect for commitment or loyalty, and who will betray anyone if it serves her interests. Sandra finally found her voice. Taryn, I think you should leave, now. Sandra, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Clear out your desk. Security will escort you out. Taryn looked around the room desperately, but no one would meet her eyes. Her colleagues, people she'd worked with for years, were staring at their phones or their notebooks, anywhere but at her. She grabbed her purse and ran from the room, sobbing. Colt tried to follow her, but Jake Morrison grabbed his arm. Where the hell do you think you're going? Jake demanded. We have clients here. We have a reputation to maintain. Jake, I can explain. You can explain to our lawyers, and to our investors, and to everyone else who trusted you to run this company with some semblance of professionalism. Maya and I walked out together while the room dissolved into chaos behind us. In the elevator, she turned to me and smiled. How do you feel? Like I just won the lottery. Good, because we're not done yet. She was right. Over the next week, the fallout was spectacular. The video of our presentation had been recorded by multiple people and shared across social media. Taryn was fired from her job. Colt's business partners forced him out of the company. Both of their reputations in the local business community were destroyed, but Maya had saved the best for last. I've filed for divorce, she told me over coffee, and I'm taking everything. The house, the cars, the business assets, everything. Colt's going to be lucky if he can afford a studio apartment when I'm done with him. What about Taryn? What about her? She's unemployed, unemployable, and about to be divorced from a man with no assets and no income. I'd say that's punishment enough. I thought about it. No, it's not. Maya raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? I told her my plan. She listened, nodding slowly, and when I finished, she was grinning. You know what, Derrick? I think I like the way you think. The final piece of our revenge came 2 weeks later. Taryn had moved in with Colt temporarily, since neither of them could afford their own place anymore. They were trying to keep a low profile, avoid the gossip and the stares. So Maya and I decided to make sure they couldn't hide anymore. We hired a truck and filled it with everything from Taryn's side of our house. Her clothes, her furniture, her personal belongings, everything. Then we drove to Colt's apartment building during rush hour, when the maximum number of people would be around to witness what happened next. We dumped it all on his front lawn, every piece of clothing, every photograph, every memento of our 10-year marriage. We arranged it carefully, making sure the lingerie was visible from the street, making sure the love letters she'd written to Colt were scattered where anyone could read them. Then we put up a sign. Free stuff. Cheater's garage sale. Take what you want. Within an hour, there was a crowd. Neighbors, strangers, people driving by who stopped to see what was happening. They were taking photos, posting on social media, picking through Taryn's belongings like vultures. Taryn and Colt came running out of the building, screaming at people to stop, trying to gather up the scattered remains of their dignity. But there were too many people, too much chaos. I stood across the street with Maya, watching the show. You know, Maya said, I almost feel sorry for them. Almost? Almost. Then I remember how they laughed about us, and the feeling passes. My phone buzzed. A text from Taryn. Please make this stop. I'm begging you. I showed the message to Maya. She shook her head. Too late for begging now. I typed back, You should have thought about consequences before you decided to destroy our marriage. Enjoy your new life with Colt. As we walked away, I could hear Taryn crying and Colt shouting at the crowd. But no one was listening to them anymore. They were just entertainment now, a cautionary tale about what happens when you betray the wrong people. Maya dropped me off at my house now, since Taryn had moved out and couldn't afford a lawyer to fight me for it. So what's next for you? She asked. I don't know. Maybe I'll take a vacation. I've got some money saved up, and I hear the beach is nice this time of year. Alone? I thought about Jenna, who had been my rock through all of this, who had helped me plan, supported me through the worst of it, and never once told me I was going too far. Maybe not alone, Maya smiled. Good for you. You deserve some happiness after all this. What about you? Me? I'm going to take everything Colt owns, and then I'm going to start over somewhere new. Maybe I'll open my own consulting firm. Maya Rayner, Trust and Transparency Solutions. We both laughed. Maya. Yeah? Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. You just would have done it differently. She paused. But I'm glad we did it together. It was more fun this way. After she drove away, I stood in my driveway for a long time, looking at my house. It needed work, new paint, roof repairs, landscaping, but it was mine now, completely and totally mine. I pulled out my phone and called Jenna. Hey, she said. How did it go? Better than I hoped. Want to come over and celebrate? I'll bring champagne. As I waited for her, I thought about Taryn and Colt, probably still cleaning up the mess we'd left on his lawn, probably wondering how their perfect plan had gone so wrong, how the stupid husband and the trusting wife had turned the tables so completely. They'd called me pathetic. They'd laughed about how easy I was to fool. They'd thought they were so much smarter than everyone else. But in the end, they were just two selfish people who had underestimated the wrong opponents. They'd wanted to play games with people's lives, and they'd lost. I'd won. And I was just getting started with my new life. 3 months later, I was sitting in a lawyer's office, watching Taryn's attorney try to explain why his client deserved half of everything I owned. Mr. Mallon, he said, shuffling through papers nervously, my client was married to you for 10 years. Under state law, she's entitled to half of all marital assets. My lawyer, Patricia Chen, the best divorce attorney Jenna's firm could recommend, smiled coldly. That would be true if your client hadn't committed adultery and abandoned the marriage. We have extensive documentation of Mrs. Mallon's affair, including audio recordings of her admitting to cheating and discussing her plans to defraud my client in the divorce proceedings. She slid a folder across the table. Taryn's lawyer opened it, and his face went pale. These recordings were obtained illegally. Actually, they weren't. Mr. Mallon recorded conversations in his own home, which is perfectly legal in this state. Your client was unaware she was being recorded because she was conducting her affair in what she thought was secret. I'd been busy during the 3 months since the warehouse incident. While Taryn was trying to rebuild her life with Colt, I'd been documenting everything. Every lie, every hidden asset, every attempt to manipulate the divorce proceedings. The audio recording Patricia played next was my masterpiece. Taryn's voice filled the room, talking to Colt about hiding money from me, lying about her income, and planning to claim I'd been abusive to get a better settlement. I'll tell them he hit me, her voice said clearly. I'll say he was controlling and violent. The judge will give me everything. Taryn started crying. I never said that. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I said. Just like you meant it when you said I was too stupid to figure out what you were doing. Her lawyer was frantically taking notes, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Perhaps we can reach some kind of settlement? No settlement, Patricia said firmly. My client wants this to go to trial. He wants a judge to hear exactly what kind of person he was married to. But we never made it to trial. 2 days before the court date, Taryn's lawyer called with an offer to give me everything, the house, the cars, even her retirement account, in exchange for a quick, quiet divorce. I accepted. Not because I needed her money, but because I wanted her to have nothing left to fall back on. The final hearing was a formality. Taryn sat at the defendant's table, looking like she'd aged 10 years and 6 months. Colt wasn't there. According to Maya, he'd moved back in with his parents after losing his apartment. When the judge signed the divorce decree, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized was there. Outside the courthouse, Taryn caught up with me. Derrick, please, I know I made mistakes, but this is too much. I have nothing left. You have Colt. Isn't that what you wanted? Colt and I, it didn't work out. Of course it didn't. Without the thrill of sneaking around, without the excitement of forbidden romance, they'd discovered they had nothing in common except their willingness to betray their spouses. That's not my problem anymore, Taryn. I'm homeless. I'm living in my car. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you, but please. Sorry? I laughed. You're not sorry you cheated. You're not sorry you lied. You're not sorry you tried to humiliate me. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences. That's not true. It's completely true. If I hadn't found out, you'd still be screwing Colt and planning to take half my assets in the divorce. The only thing you regret is that your plan failed. She stared at me with tears streaming down her face. What happened to you? You used to be a good man. I was a good man married to a bad woman. Now I'm a free man who learned not to trust the wrong people. I walked away and left her standing there in the courthouse parking lot. That evening, Jenna and I were having dinner at Romano's, the nicest restaurant in town, the same restaurant where Taryn used to meet Colt for their secret dates. "So how does it feel?" Jenna asked. "To be officially divorced? Like I can finally breathe again." "Any regrets?" I thought about it seriously. About the divorce? No. About the revenge? No. About wasting 10 years of my life on someone who never deserved it? Maybe. You couldn't have known what she was really like. Couldn't I? Looking back, there were signs. Little things. The way she talked about other people, the way she treated service workers, the way she always had to be the center of attention. I just chose to ignore them because I loved who I thought she was. And now? Now I know better. Now I know what real loyalty looks like. I reached across the table and took her hand. Jenna had been there for me through everything. The discovery, the planning, the execution, the aftermath. She'd never judged me, never told me I was going too far, never asked me to be the bigger person. She'd just helped me win. "Derrick," she said softly, "are you sure you're ready for this? For us, you've been through a lot." I've never been more sure of anything. Because I don't want to be your rebound. I don't want to be the consolation prize. You're not. You're the prize I should have been smart enough to choose in the first place. She smiled, and I realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the desperate, anxious attachment I'd felt with Taryn, but something calm and solid and real. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Saw the divorce announcement in the paper. Congratulations? Drink soon?" I showed Jenna the message. "Maya wants to celebrate." "She should. You two pulled off the revenge of the century." "We did, didn't we? So what's next? Are you going to keep working at the warehouse?" I'd been thinking about that. Actually, Dave offered me a promotion, assistant manager, with a raise and better hours. Turns out having your personal drama splashed across social media doesn't hurt your reputation when everyone thinks you're the victim. "Are you going to take it?" "I think so. It's good work, good people. And now that I don't have to support a cheating wife, I can actually save some money." "For what?" "I don't know yet. Maybe a vacation, maybe a new truck, maybe a ring." Jenna nearly choked on her wine. "A ring?" "Eventually, when we're both ready, when we're sure." "And when will that be?" "When I stop having dreams about destroying my ex-wife's life and start having dreams about building a new one with you." She laughed. "How romantic." "I'm working on it. Give me time." As we walked to the car after dinner, I saw a familiar figure sitting on a bench near the restaurant entrance. Taryn, looking homeless and desperate, watching couples come and go from the place where she used to feel like she belonged. She saw me and started to stand up, but I shook my head and kept walking. "Was that?" Jenna asked. "Nobody important." In the car, Jenna was quiet for a while. "Do you think we went too far?" she finally asked. "Do you?" "Sometimes. When I see her like that, looking so broken, sometimes I wonder if the punishment fit the crime." I thought about it as I drove. About Taryn sitting alone on that bench, about Colt living with his parents, about the complete destruction of their lives and reputations. "They made their choices," I said finally. "They chose to lie, to cheat, to betray the people who trusted them. They chose to mock us and humiliate us and plan to destroy us financially. We just made sure there were consequences for those choices. But look what it cost them, everything. Look what it cost us first. My marriage, your faith in relationships, Maya's trust in her husband. They were willing to destroy other people's lives for their own pleasure. Why should we feel sorry for them when they face the same destruction?" Jenna nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm not used to being the villain in someone else's story." "We're not the villains. We're the people who refuse to be victims. Is there a difference? There's all the difference in the world." 6 months later, I was standing in my backyard, looking at the new deck I'd built with the money I'd saved from not having to support a cheating wife. Jenna was inside, cooking dinner and humming along to the radio. My phone rang. Maya. "Derrick, how are things?" "Good. Really good. You?" "Fantastic. I just wanted to call and tell you I saw Taryn yesterday." "Where?" "At the grocery store where she's working now. Bagging groceries, looking miserable." I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. "How did she look?" "Tired, old, defeated. She saw me and tried to hide behind the register." "Did you talk to her?" "I bought groceries in her line. When she bagged my stuff, I said thank you very politely. She started crying. Jesus. I know. Part of me felt bad for her, but then I remembered what she put us through and the feeling passed. Any word on Colt? He's working at his uncle's car dealership, selling used cars for minimum wage plus commission. Jake told me he looks like hell. We talked for a few more minutes, catching up on our new lives. Maya had started her consulting business and was doing well. I'd gotten the promotion at work and was considering going back to school for a business degree. Both of us were dating new people. Both of us were happy. After I hung up, I stood there thinking about the conversation, about Taryn bagging groceries, about Colt selling used cars, about the complete reversal of fortune that had brought them from their affair fantasy to minimum wage reality. I tried to feel guilty about it. I tried to summon some compassion for the people they'd become. But I couldn't. They'd made their choices. They'd rolled the dice on destroying 2 marriages for the sake of their selfish desires. They'd lost. I'd made my choices too. I'd refused to be the pathetic cuckold they'd expected me to be. I'd fought back with everything I had. I'd won, and I was living with the consequences of that victory every day in my paid-off house with my promotion at work, and with a woman who understood what loyalty actually meant. Jenna came outside and wrapped her arms around me from behind. "Dinner's ready. What are you thinking about out here?" "Just enjoying the view. It is beautiful, isn't it?" I looked at my yard, my house, my life, everything I'd built and everything I'd fought to keep. "Yeah," I said, "it really is." That night, as Jenna slept beside me in the bed that used to belong to me and Taryn, I thought about the man I'd been a year ago. The trusting husband, the faithful provider, the good guy who believed that doing the right thing would be enough. That man was gone. He'd passed away the night he heard his wife laughing about how much better her lover was than him. In his place was someone harder, smarter, more dangerous, someone who understood that the world was full of people who would take everything you had if you let them, someone who had learned to fight back. Some people might call that man a villain, but I called him a survivor. And as I drifted off to sleep in my own house, next to a woman who had earned the right to be there, I realized I was completely at peace with who I'd become. They'd called me pathetic. They'd called me stupid. They'd called me a victim. But in the end, I was the one still standing. I was the one who'd won, and that was all that mattered.